Okay, now that we've chosen our piece of reference, this lovely picture of Christopher Lee as Dracula. It's a very strong portrait, a very directional light with a very strong rim light. And I thought for our first DVD, we'd focus on a character that incorporates a lot of translucent skin tones and dramatic lighting along with soft lighting. So for this project I've chosen a piece of illustration board with that very nice tooth to it, and I've done something a little different. I've glued a piece of 1/2-inch foam core onto it to give it a little bit more stability, but also for handling purposes, and if you're mailing it off to a client or you want something nice and stiff and sturdy. The next step, once your drawing is on, is to seal the drawing. You have to seal the board so your oils don't seep into it. So that's the next step. Okay, we're ready to seal our drawing on the illustration board. For this I use Liquitex acrylic matte medium. Actually, any acrylic medium will do. You could even seal it with like thin washes of acrylic paint. So we have our board, we have our acrylic matte medium, nice soft brush, and some water. So you want to wet your brush, and I like to start on an edge so I can kind of gauge my technique and also what kind of texture I want on the board. Even though it has a very nice fine velvety texture, you still want to kind of give it some directional brush strokes. And that way when you're scumbling your paint over, it gives a nice painterly texture. So I usually do the background first and just do brush strokes any direction. Give it just a nice coating of the acrylic matte medium. Make sure you get the edges too. Nice and straight there. And work your way into the face area. Now you'll see that the acrylic matte medium will sometimes do a little bit of smearing of your pencil, and that's okay. You won't lose your line. I draw fairly heavy anyway, so I'm not going to lose my line. Okay, here's a good place to stop. You see right here where I have a hair that came off the brush. Now the best way when you have something on your painting to get rid of it is not to stroke it down like that, but to approach it like this and then gently lift it off. There you go. That happens from time to time. It's not a problem. So you get a nice liberal coating of the matte medium. I always do the faces last. I go in towards the center so I can have nice control. I usually put 2 very nice coatings on with a very light sanding in between each one, just to knock down any things that may have stuck to it as it's drying. Now you could either dry this naturally or put a fan on it, or a hair dryer, or a heat gun. So, and also I like to keep my face area fairly smooth. So, okay, we'll wait for this to dry and we'll start the second part. As we're waiting for our second layer of acrylic matte medium to dry, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the purpose of an underpainting. Here's one that I've been working on. This is the underpainting. It's Peter Lloyd from Mad Love. And you have to choose an underpainting that complements your color scheme and kind of what you want to do with it. So I know that on this particular painting I wanted going to have a very cool light kind of cascading down his face, describing all the forms, very directional light. So I went with a warm underpainting so you can get that nice play of light and cool. or cool and warm, I'm sorry. So here I've done a raw sienna wash, and then for the darks I've used a magenta mixed with a little bit of blue, and that gives it a nice kind of deep, warm, rich feel to it. So this is what we're going to achieve with our Christopher Lee Dracula portrait. Now, as far as the drawing that you do on your portrait, I think that it doesn't really matter how detailed it is. It's all what you're comfortable with. This is about as detailed as I get. I want to just hit the major areas and get a little bit of detail where it's important. So now there's different ways to go about transferring the drawing from your piece of reference. You can hand draw it out, or you can put it on a projector. Being an illustrator for 32 years, in illustration, time is money, and the quicker you can do something, turn it around, the quicker you can start on the next project. So traditionally, illustrators have used projectors to project their reference either onto a piece of paper or to the finished surface, and then they work from there. You have to remember, though, that with photography and printing and things like that, there will be distortions. So you want to recognize that you don't just project the photo and then that's it. You have to use your own eye, and you have to look for odd distortions, and anything that looks kind of funny in it you'll have to fix in your drawing. So even after the projection of the image on the board, you still have to go in and reestablish some things, change some things, maybe add a little more life and form to the hair, enlarge the eyes, things like that. Change the shape of a collar, everything to direct the viewer to the portrait. To the most important thing on a portrait is the face. So we have the reference here, we have the line drawing on the board, and we have an example of the underpainting. The next step will be to actually do the underpainting on here, and for that I've chosen a few acrylic colors. Usually this step I use oil paints, but to speed the process up a bit, I'm going to use acrylics. So we have burnt umber, and we have a cocoa bean, and we have a nice raw sienna, which is a kind of a warm golden brown. And although it may be shocking, we have a rose pink, and this color is what you bring the blood into your portrait. My underpaintings from this point on may be a little bit shocking looking, but it'll make sense as I go. Okay, we have, starting out, we have our raw sienna, nice kind of golden brown. Light golden brown. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, and I'm going to just use this thinly to give a nice base to start with. And again, I usually start with the background, just kind of covering it, just kind of making sure the white, because sometimes painting on a stark white background can make it very difficult to judge your values, especially the light values, against, and it could throw you off. So unless I'm going to do a white background, which I've done in my paintings and my portraits, you want to try to kind of get rid of some of that or most of that white, stark white. And again, on this one, the colors that I've chosen for this is going to be a very cool light coming in over here. So I'm going to do a nice warm underpainting. Again, you don't have to be too neat with this because it'll be, for the most part, covered over. But just to cover up that white and kind of get the ball rolling. It's a little piece of something or other. It's kind of a strange phenomenon, you know. Once you start putting color on your board, all of a sudden this stark white surface that you're working on, it doesn't look so intimidating when you take the process just like step by step by step. And this is what I'm going to teach you in this DVD, the steps that you can take to achieve a painting. From my techniques, the techniques I've learned from other artists, from my teachers, through studying art history, different artists from the great masters of the past. I've kind of put them all in a blender and kind of come up with my own style. But it is standing on the shoulders of giants who have come before me. So we have the first layer here kind of blocked in. I always liked to solve problems one at a time. I remember when I was in art school and just learning how to oil paint, and you know, you have all these problems that you're dealing with of color, of value, of temperature, and you're trying to kind of understand these different things, and sometimes they become very overwhelming. So my teacher taught me to take one step at a time, solve one problem at a time. Solve your value problem. The value is going from light to dark. And then solve your chroma color. The chroma is how intense a color is. And then your temperature. You know, some colors, even the blues and the greens, are warm and some are cool. So if you divide those problems up and solve them one at a time, it's not such a daunting problem.